what do they get? Well, tracks in here don't talk and give you information. So the mainstream researchers, Sasquatch researchers, tell me, you're doing it all wrong. You need to get the proof first, which is to kill the Sasquatch, then we can communicate. I mean, duh. I mean, how do you communicate with a dead Sasquatch? I mean, these people are educated idiots. I mean, I have 4 degrees and just about almost 10 years of college, and I can think outside the box, and these people can't. I mean, it's just sad. Instead of investigating, they've read none of my books.
I read both your books.
Referred to me as a fraud without investigating anything. So that's okay, because they're so far behind. I'm light years ahead of them, and so are you folks, ahead of those people. So that's all that counts. I don't need I'm not in competition with them. I'm not ego involved. I don't care. I'm not trying to help them, but they're very insulting. And so I'm ready to say, hey, have a good life kind of thing. But I, give people the benefit of the doubt. There's a group of 19 so-called Sasquatch experts that are picking my brain on the internet, and we've been doing this for about almost 4 months. And anyway, I'm getting a little tired of it because they're still in kindergarten, and when you tell them so they can graduate, they deny it, and then they try to pick it apart, and oh no, it sounds like a fairy story. They don't know. I told them, as soon as I found out that the Sasquatch were psychic and interdimensional, I started reading quantum physics and other aspects in the paranormal to try to understand what was going on. They've known about the psychic Sasquatch since me, because it was 39 years ago that I started speaking about it publicly. And I guess they don't get it. It's something really wrong. Maybe their therapist could help them, Okay, how you doing? Okay, it's been 39 years ago. I walked into the Wisconsin Society of Psychic Research in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, just to kind of look around, and I had my master's degree and all this stuff. So coming from a scientific background, I kind of treaded real lightly, into it. And I went there a couple of times and talked to people, and one man kept coming up to me saying, well, you should, you're very psychic and you don't know it. And he asked me to join his Dowsing class, and at first I thought, well, it's all about money, but he charged $35 for 6 weeks, and you go once a week. And I thought, heck, I got nothing to lose, and this sounds kind of fascinating. I don't even know if I can do it. Well, I become a master dowser at this point. So I never thought of that, but my whole world changed. And he kept telling me it'll change for you once you understand what you can do, once you learn the dynamics of dowsing. He said, well, you're into Sasquatch. Well, you'll be able to find him anywhere. And I said, that's really stretching it. He's really trying to do a sales pitch on me. But, I joined, but he was absolutely correct, and in every way. And because, of course, again, coming from a scientific background, I just didn't embrace this stuff. It just sounded too airy-fairy. But during the class, he taught how the dynamics the very first time, the first class. The second week, you had to bring in material for a pendulum and make it there. Also, you had to bring an atlas road map. So I came in the second week, and there were 14 of us there in class, and he said, okay, we're having an exam. What the heck's going on here? You don't get credit. If you flunk, you don't get thrown out, whatever. But, I just thought, gee, that's, I don't even know what I'm doing hardly. And so he walked around, he passed these little tiny square pictures that were taken, a picture of a man taken out of a newspaper. And he laid it on everybody's desk. He says, open up to the map of the United States, break it down, and find this man, what state he's in and where he is and so on. Really? Well, we did. We started doing it, and I did it. exactly as he told me. And I ended up in Wisconsin, so I flipped over there, and then it pointed 1.5 miles into Lake Michigan, way up in the northern part. And I said, well, I goofed big time. I don't know what I'm doing. So I sat there feeling a little depressed. After all, I was very, very scholarly in school, and all of a sudden, I feel like a flunky. So he comes around, he said, what did you get? I said, no, I didn't get anything there. He said, no, what did you get? And he prodded me. I really didn't want to tell him. I was too embarrassed. I said, right there in the middle of Lake Michigan. He said, you got it. I said, what? And I wasn't dowsing for fish. I was dowsing for this guy, So he said, we'll discuss it in a few minutes. And he went around, and nobody else got it.
Wow.
And some people got Wisconsin and, somewhere there, but absolutely not. He said, you're absolutely accurate. And I said, well, what's going on? He said, this guy, in the middle of winter, why he did it in winter is insanity, but from Iowa wanted to be in a balloon. And he was in a basket and going to go across the United States. A lot of people want to, climb the side of the Empire State Building or something just for, to say they did it, But the winds come up and it blew him into Wisconsin, and he couldn't get down fast enough to let this thing down because he was inexperienced, and he landed right in the lake and, of course, perished because he didn't last more than 30 seconds. The water is just, it's unbelievably cold in the summer, and there were icebergs floating around there at that time. So I said to my mentor, I said, well, how do you know that this is... He said, I dowsed, and I called the Coast Guard, and they went out. I told them exactly where. And they went out, and the gondola and everything is there.
Wow.
So after the class was over, he called me up and said, my partner has left, and he's in his 60s, and he left for Tennessee to retire down there, and so I need a new partner, and I like you for my partner. Mm-hmm. So I learned even more, and we worked finding missing persons with the sheriff's department and with some of the district attorneys and so forth. So, but in the meantime, I decided to douse for the Sasquatch, because the biggest thing going is people don't know where they are. Mm-hmm. And if you go to where you think they are, they're interdimensional, so they can do what they want. If they want to show themselves or do something, the majority of the time, either they leave or just observe you, because the person going out there in some of these areas want to exploit them, and that energy brings a low vibrational frequency. So I set up a experimental design, as scientific as I could be, and had it included 4 people that were psychic. So I ordered 4 maps of the Mount Hood Wilderness area, and where they were side by side. You set them up, 2 here and 2 there, and they all blended in to the same area. So I asked, where are they? Which map? And it pointed, so I got rid of the other maps, put them aside, broke that down, and it hit a particular area. So I didn't mark it on the map so nobody would know. So then I had my mentor do it, and I put out the 4 maps, and he dowsed, same map as me, found that right beside me about 50 feet. I mean, I was floored. Because I still was a little skeptical, I mean, here I am doing it, but I'm skeptical. Well, with the scientific side of me, so I just didn't want to dive into something and end up a fool. So then another dowser, who was an expert dowser, dowsed. He got the same thing, but he was 100 feet away from me. And the 4th person was a woman that used to have her own radio talk show in Chicago as a famous psychic, and she's from Milwaukee. And I went to her, and all this time I have a picture of the Patterson film to tune into. It's very important to know. I don't need any of that now. I can just visualize quick and be there. So, but for anyone else, they'd want to have a photograph either of their lost dog or, a Sasquatch or whatever. So she said, you're going to go into an area somewhere in Oregon. And I didn't tell her any of this stuff. And then she says, there'll be Sasquatch there, and I see a cave. And I didn't know there was a cave, and I didn't ask. I didn't feel it or ask. Now I ask all these things. But my mentor did, and he said, hey, there's a cave there. Well, she turned around and said, there's a cave there, and the Sasquatch are protecting this ET in the cave, and they're doing things. So if you get near the cave, you're going to meet a being that you're not going to be prepared to deal with. So stay away from the cave, which I did. Went out there, had Sasquatch experiences. The cave, this rump in the night of some kind of a sound coming from in the earth. I had a Sasquatch experience there, and I thought he scared me a little bit, and I took pictures of the tracks and that kind of thing at that time. So when 2 weeks later, after I got back, I was assistant director of a urban First Nation agency, and so one of the Native Americans bought an old farm and wanted the medicine man to come. He was a Potawatomi medicine man, come to bless it and to discuss the property. And I was invited along with four other Native people. We got out to the farm, and they sat around, started discussing all this stuff, and I just said, geez, I want to stretch a little bit. I'll just kind of walk over by the woods here. And I just kind of lollygagged over there, and all of a sudden, a voice of a person that wasn't too smooth in English said, I am a Sasquatch, and I'm here watching you, and have been watching you for a long time. And so he kept saying this, and it made me nervous as heck. I wasn't afraid. I just said, what is this about? So I walked away from the woods and went up on the side of a hill overlooking the area there, and all of a sudden a very sophisticated voice said, I am a star person, and I too have been watching you for many years, longer than you know or understand right now. Much later, they told me they were there at the moment of my birth. That many of these people, like myself, my wife Kelly, and my son, and everything, our souls are of an ancient one, which are Sasquatch types with a human face, that have come in here. That's why we have no fear, and why we're doing what we're doing. It's to push people ahead, to push society ahead, those that are ready, because a majority of people aren't ready. In fact, they worship materialism and money and status and those kinds of things that really don't count. They think it counts, but so we're in a very unhealthy society because it's draining. First of all, the competition puts stress on people. People make tons of money sometimes in the city, but they buy drugs or they're drinking after work because they're so stressed out with their money. So wait a minute, how does this balance out? Then they die early because of alcoholism or some other thing, So it's unhealthy. I was shocked by all this, not afraid, but shocked that an ET and a Sasquatch talked to me. And I said, well, I'm never going to tell anyone, absolutely no one, because they're not going to believe me anyway. Mm-hmm. So, of course, here it's gone all over the world. It's all your guys' fault, too. So, I didn't know, but 2 days later, a voice said, I was sleeping, said, wake up, my friend, we're here. And I opened my eyes facing the wall, and I thought, oh no, a burglar broke in, and I expected a gun in my face. I rolled over, and there were two Sasquatch standing there. And they were living apparitions. I could see through them. And I said, oh, they astral projected to me. I didn't know they could do that. And so they did all kinds of things to show me they were interdimensional. So it's been ongoing ever since. I've helped a lot of people with locating only those that are ready, those that want to photograph and exploit, sell the photographs for big money, or shoot a Sasquatch. I can tell who these people are, and so I've never done any dowsing for anyone that would harm a Sasquatch. I won't even have anything to do with them. So I've done a lot of dowsing for people, and I've found so far it's been 100%, except for those people who try to stay too scientific. You know what I mean? They're still holding on to fear. And so these people went out to the areas, they found some tracks and stuff, but they had no contact because they were still afraid. So that's okay, if they want to refine themselves and to work at it. But some people say, oh, see, dowsing didn't work. No, it worked. It's you, fella. It's you. It's not me. It's because it's between you, the Sasquatch, and God once you're out there in their territory. So if they want to show themselves, they will, as long as you follow some of the things I suggest. Of course, people, you can't say to someone, oh, you're being fearful, so stop being that. Okay, and you shut it off. It doesn't quite work that way, but it's okay to work on it, and these beings know that. And if you kept going out to that area, because it's in somewhere in your neighborhood or state, and you can do that several times over the spring, summer, and fall, they'll get to know you, and they'll follow you home. You don't even have to do that. They follow people home and start appearing inside. Now, the mainstream researchers, of course, don't believe in any of this stuff. I'm tired of trying to explain things, and I told them the paranormal, all this psychic stuff is quantum physics. It's mainstream, but it's not being recognized. And they say, oh no, that's not true. They're in denial on everything, and I finally told them, well, the denial is not a river in northern Egypt, it's you gotta. Yes.
Did you ask those researchers who were so vehement that this is not true?
Louder, please.
I said, did you ask these researchers who are so vehement that this is not true if they believe in God? Because if they do, they have faith in something they can't see, so they should have faith here as well.
They're closed off.
That's unfortunate.
They've hit a stone wall. All these people, a couple of them are loosening up, but they're not admitting it to their peers, and that there's something going on. They just don't know how to proceed. I read the books and tried to figure this out, and with dowsing, with the quantum physics and all that, and I figured it out because that's what you do as a researcher. They didn't read any books on any of that, so they don't care because they just want a body, and so they read other books on people stalking them. So it just kind of reinforces their ignorance. So I feel sad. They're good people overall, but they're just misleading each other. They're enabling each other with their egos. Everyone's massaging each other's ego, and oh, you found another track. That's wonderful. Sorry, tracks don't talk, They don't share information. Yes, I've done probably just over 100 different areas for dowsing for Sasquatch, and I did one for Rita Shertek. She's not here, I guess, at the moment, but I don't know if you've met Rita. She's a very nice lady. She's a nurse. And she asked me to douse for her. And so I did. And she lives in LA, and she has a cabin 3.5 hours away up in the mountains. So I dowsed. She sent me everything, and I dowsed. And I said, well, they're about 5 miles away, 5.5 miles. And I said, that's a walk in the park for them. But I said, I would go to them first and not try to have them come to the cabin. I said, because they don't know you. But if you go to where they're at, they'll be around you. So I taught her telepathy over the phone, and I taught her what to say. And I had her say, that I want to, in the little sentence, to telepath while holding on to their image. You must hold on, visualize and hold on to their image. And, say, I'm a friend of Kewaunee's. If they throw rocks at you, that was a wrong thing to do. But she was about 10 miles from the trailhead, and she started to telepath, and immediately they started talking to her. And she was surprised. And the thing is, she's a nurse, and she's a healer. I'm a healer, and I studied with a shaman, an Ojibwe shaman, for 2 years. So, in fact, I studied with 5 master healers, and she was one of them before I decided to do anything after I got my master's degree in holistic health. So I wanted to understand dealing with another human being's life that I know what I'm doing. If I can't, then I'll quit and become a janitor. So they go to healers just like Native American people. They went to the shamans there, and all over the world they go to them first because they're the ones that have that ability, and they understand. They're more open, and so they would go to the medicine people. So they went to her, and she arrived at the trailhead, and they stopped talking. She had a jar of honey and some other things that she wanted to leave for them, and she walked down a trail, but there was no place she could see, and she didn't want to leave it where people could see it. So she went bushwhacking. She went in quite a ways and then found a stump, put it down on the stump, and I told her, telepath to them and say, this is where it is, this is a gift. So she did all that, and after she did it, started raining. And it was starting to rain pretty hard, and she said, geez, it's a long ways, I got to get back to the car. Well, the harder it rained, she realized she wasn't wet. The rain wasn't touching her. And she said, what is this? So she walked all the way back to the car. She was dry as a bone, got in the car, and they said, we wanted to help you. Since you evoked the name of Kewaunee, we wanted to keep you dry so you wouldn't catch a cold. Wow. So she now has ongoing contact. So that's kind of rare that these happen right away, but sometimes the person has to go back a few times, or they'll follow them home and start doing that at home back and forth. Sometimes in their backyard, sometimes just I was in an apartment in the middle of Milwaukee, so they would come there, and all the time. They did numerous times. So a woman asked me in 2011, she goes to southern Siberia every year to backpack, and she joined an organization over there. She speaks Russian. She was born in America, but she comes from a Russian heritage. So she learned her language, and they started some kind of a wildlife conservation thing there, and so she's involved with that, but she goes every year. And she asked me to dowse for a almost 11,000 miles away. So I said, give me the maps. She gave me the maps, and I dowsed. The thing is, I was raised as in parochial schools and private schools, and the nuns never told me all this was going to happen, kind of thing. And, that when I do the dowsing on the map, I can lay my hand down on it and start communicating with the Sasquatch that are there. I don't care where they are. So there was a female almost there, and there's a portal, and she was hanging out by the portal, and it was right at a lake. So this woman, there was no more trails around. She had to hire a guide to take her 15 miles, partly by horseback and partly by boat, to drop her off, and then she said she would hike out, because once she got her bearings and everything. And the first, I told, there's a female almost there, and there's a portal, and you should have success. And the first night there, she had a fire going and sitting by her tent, and a female almost ran right through her campsite. So, bingo, 11,000 miles away, dowsing works. It can't be proven. How many times do you do it to prove people? It's like William James said, it takes only one white crow to prove that all crows are not black. Well, geez, I got about 100 white crows here, and they all could stand up and say, don't call me a liar because this happened. So, but they'll call you a liar anyway, and that's okay. Ignoramus is sort of that way. But God bless those people, and hope that, that they will start to understand in time that we don't live in a capitalist world. That's not the world. That's just a very, very speck of it. And we have to consider Mother Earth and everything that's going on because she's the one that's sustaining us. And the corporations have got so powerful that they're running the show because they can pay off anybody, you know, $5, $10 million, $20 million. It's pocket change to them. So those people, a lot of them are, I believe, evil because they have no consideration for anyone else other than their egos, money, power, and that kind of thing. So I'd like to see them take any of that with them. So I've located for people also, I could tell people how many Sasquatch are there. See, first of all, I ask which one here of any clan or family would be interested with this particular person. So they give me a photograph of themselves and I tune into that and I project it to them. And they, no, oh, my mate's going to have a baby, so we don't want anyone here. Otherwise we would. I thanked them and found another one for somebody. So I matched them up. So it's the best match you could get. Then I teach them telepathy and how to think and what to say in the beginning. So all that's important. I also say how many, the gender, if there's 5 there, or there's 3 males and 2 females, or whatever the case. I also find UFO landing sites. Most places don't, maybe 20% of places, or 25% would have that. You may say, why? That's kind of a lot in a way. But no, they're not going to land in Main Street. They're going to land in a wilderness where nobody can see them. And besides, that's where the mining takes place, when they do the mining. So far, I've dowsed 125 water wells, and all successfully. And the last 2 were 2 different ranches. One in January, first time I ever did it in the snow. I tell them how deep and how many gallons a minute. And I ask them, I want to know the results. If not, I call them. I want to know. So I can discuss it and speak openly so I can state the facts. And she says, it was just like you said, 185 feet down and 6.5 gallons a minute. So anyhow, I did 2 people this year. And the 3 oil wells, the guy never told me that until I did all 3 wells. And I said, this is the biggest well right here. How I know? I had a rod like this and it came out and hit me right in the face. I couldn't control it. There was so much oil. And I said, this place has the most oil and of any of the other 2 places. And he said, I wish I'd have met you sooner. He said, because I would have saved a lot of money. And I said, how so? And he said, well, I just hired, he said, 2 months ago, a team of seismologists to come in. And they got all 3 places that you got, they got. He said, you're right on. And he said, see that stake over there, which was about 50 feet away? And I said, yeah. And he says, that's where they said to drill. But I'm drilling here where you told me. So, because he never saw anything like that. And that was the first time I even tried. In 1984, I moved from Milwaukee to Roseburg, Oregon. And when I did, they had pictures of sketches of 2 men, and it said that these men had been abducting teenagers, raping them, and then chopping them up. So they had 200 suspects, but no leads. They were all dead ends. And I said I stayed with a friend when I moved there to look for my own place and everything, but I stayed with my friend for a month. And he had a business, and he was well known through the entire town. And when I told him, I said, these are not the people. They're looking for the wrong guys. And because on the store windows, they would have these posters, you know. And he said, really? So he knew very well the district attorney. I want to talk to him. We got to find this guy. So I had lunch. It was supposed to be a 45-minute lunch. It was 90 minutes. I talk a lot, I guess, but I had a lot to say, and he hired me to find the killer. So he told the Oregon State Police, whatever Kewaunee tells you, you do. So I met them at their office, and I said, I need something, what we call a witness, to tune into. excuse me, he said, well, we don't have anything. That's the problem. And I looked at the detective and I said, you have her panties. And I said, there's semen on those panties. And his face turned white. He looked at me because he didn't believe, he was just following orders. He didn't believe anything I said. He was almost like a robot around me, you know. And he looked at me and said, how do you know that? We never told anyone. And I said, just get him, would you? And don't touch him. I said, just dump him here. I don't want your energy on him. I definitely didn't want his energy. And so as soon as he dropped him, I picked up the panties like this, and my third eye opened up, and I saw him, and I described, and there was another detective taking notes over here, and I said, the guy's between 32 and 35 years old, and I described him, dark hair, sideburns that come down like to a point, and then a Fu Manchu. He had an old green pickup that was kind of battered, and he had a hound dog, and he was a woodcutter. And so that's the information I gave them. So I said, this is where he is. I said, you know, either go there and surround it, or I'll help you in the field, but I need to be in a helicopter. So to make sure the area, and I'll show you in a minute why when I work these. 3 weeks went by. 3 weeks. The guy was living in a cabin in the woods, and I kept, why haven't they contacted me to tell me they got him or whatever they did? So finally I called the district attorney and they said, oh no, they're still working on it in Oregon. I said, he's gone. She says, what? I said, he left. I don't know where he left, but he's not there anymore. So they checked the area out, and there wasn't anybody in the cabin, and everything was gone. So I said, I've got to do it again. So I did it again, and it ended up Northern California, right on the Oregon border. So they sent me down there with a detective and to find this guy, and I couldn't find him. I said, he's in this area, and I don't know why I can't pinpoint him. So I went back. We drove all the way back. We stayed overnight there in the motel, and then went back to Roseburg, Oregon. So we went to the town hall, and he said, well, let's go up to see the DA. And I said, oh, I'll just wait here on the side of the lawn here, and you go ahead up. I was very depressed because I'm good at what I do, and I was really depressed, especially because he was a murderer. And he came down about 2 minutes later and said, hey, they want you upstairs right away. He says, all the detectives are up there. And, oh boy. I said, okay. So we went up there. So I sat there, and the detective sat next to me, and he pulled out all these pictures and laid them down, a whole row of them. He says, is any of these guys here? I said, that's him right there. And he said, very good. He says, we have him because of you, because of your description. He said he was caught molesting a young boy down in Wairika, California, on the border there, and they threw him in jail. But the description, they sent out his description to everyone, and they got the description in Roseburg. They said, that's our man. So then I said, wait a minute, where's the young 20-year-old blonde kid that was driving the car while he did this? Pulled out of his pocket. He says, him right here. He says, he's 22. He said, we have him too. Thank you. Wow. So he's still rotting in jail because he's a psychopath, a serial killer. And I wanted to contribute to the community.
Wow. So you got all of this not just through dowsing, it also just came as a vision through telepathic?
Just a tiny bit louder, please.
All the information
yes.
came to you through dowsing or through telepathy?
No, this is dowsing.
All of that through dowsing?
All that is dowsing.
That's
every bit of it. Now, I was working with in Milwaukee, and I befriended a detective there that had nothing to do with any of this stuff before I moved to Oregon, as a matter of fact. And we were talking, and he said, well, it's just coming up this weekend. I can't wait. He said, I'm taking I'm going on a 3-day deal, and I'm going bobcat hunting. I said, really? I said, what do you do? He said, well, I have a call, and I call it in a blind. I said, have you ever seen any or shot any? He said, nope. And I was raised hunting, fishing, trapping in the 1950s, and I was an accomplished taxidermist by age 16. I only fish once in a while now, and I dropped all that very early on in life. But that's the culture that I was raised in at that time, which really I know tracks, the forest, and everything, so that it was a good thing. You know, I learned a lot of skills. But so I knew that this guy was not a very good hunter, and he wasn't very experienced, and that's okay. And I said, why don't I help you find, I'll never do this again, but at that time I said, I'll help you find where they are. What are you talking about? He said, I'm going 300 miles north here, way north. I said, I don't care where you go. And I said, bring me a topographic map, and from a book, bring the whole book, a picture of a bobcat, a wildcat. And he said, are you kidding? And all that. No. So I explained, and very suspicious of me. So he said, okay, I'll do it. So he came to my apartment, and I laid everything out and dowsed, and I said, there's 2 bobcat around this lake right here. And I said, you can put a blind here and call them in. And I said, it's a pair of them. So he didn't jump for joy and say thank you or anything. He was so suspicious. He said, well, you know, because I'm just using a little pendulum, like a rock on the end of a string, and it sounds, you know, bizarre to him. So just then, my mentor showed up. Just as he was struggling with all this, my mentor showed up, and I asked Ralph if he would douse for me. And that's all I said. I said, is there any here? So he had 3 topographic maps, and he did the same thing and found the same one I did. He doused on it, and he turned and looked at the detective. He said, there's 2 bobcat here along this lake. Exactly. And the guy dropped his jaw. Guess what? How he's going to prove that if he hadn't seen one or shot one? This is what happened. The night before he left, it snowed 2 inches, the first snow of the season. It was in November. So there were the tracks of the 2 bobcat. So he came back and told me. Again, bingo. Oh yeah, when I moved to Roseburg, you know, I was meeting new people, and I met this mechanic. I'm always meeting strange people, you know. Like attracts like. And I needed a tune-up on my car, and so we got friendly, and he asked me, what do you do, this and that, and somehow dowsing came up, you know. I don't know why, but it came up, and I started chatting about it, and he said, God, that sounds fascinating. I'd sure like to learn that sometime. Well, finally I made an appointment to have a complete tune-up of my car. So I brought it in. I was a consultant for a small corporation in Roseburg, and before going to the office, I dropped it off, and he said, come back at before 5:30, and it'll be ready. Well, I did, and it wasn't ready, and the guy kept apologizing. And I said, well, what's wrong? How come? And he said, well, I'm embarrassed. He said, see that guy over there? And I said, yeah. And he said, he's angry with me. I said, why? He said, I'm fixing his car. And he said, I'm fixing the carburetor, and there's this little tiny pin that I took out and laid all this in a row. And he said, when I fix it, he said, I went to the bathroom. When I came back, my boss came out and moved it so the other car can come through. But unbeknownst to him, this special pin fell. And the only way, they don't send you another pin, you have to buy the whole carburetor. And that takes 3 weeks. And this guy wanted his car that night or that day. So he's freaking out. And he said, can you help me? I said, what can I do? He said, can you find the pin? And I said, well, you know, objects are harder to find. I will. And I knew he was an artist because he liked to sketch, and he had his sketches around in his little office there. And I said, can you sketch a lifelike size, the size and everything of this And I knew it would just take him 5 minutes. And he did. He brought it back, and I carried my pendulum with me, so I held it in my hand and tuned into it and stood with the hood of the car up and asked, and it pointed here. Then it crisscrosses, cross like that. And when it did, this took less than 1 minute. And I looked straight down, and on a little tiny lip, there it was. And I put my 2 fingers in, I barely got it, so I didn't want it to fall into the engine there. The rest of it, I pull it out like this. These people were saying to this mechanic, "You're nuts, this isn't real," before I did it, and they were floored completely. So the mechanic said, "Bring your car in tomorrow, it's free." You saved me money, reputation, and everything. Thank you. So it's another success thing. Now, here's an interesting thing. I've traveled the world to over 40 countries, and I lived out of the country for 5 years, and I even lived on the Amazon amongst the Kewaunee Indians, a place called the Upper Rio Loretta Yaku. So I've been around the block a few times, and one of the things I did for fun is these reports of dinosaurs in the Congo. And I suspected that there were dinosaurs in the Amazon or some relic that was there. There's been reports in the Bolivian jungle of saber-toothed tigers, big saber-tooths. We don't know if it's true or not, kind of thing. But if there was an expedition and they wanted someone to map Dows, I could put them in the area. So I had a friend who was the librarian at the University of Chicago, and he had access to all these maps. And I said, when you come to visit in Milwaukee, I said, bring me a map of the Belgium Congo, but I want it in this particular area. And I told him, generally the area, because I didn't know myself. So he brought it, and they had in a magazine a sketch of a brontosaurus kind of a thing with a long neck. And so because that's what they keep saying, no matter who goes in there, this is what the natives are saying constantly. And some of the white people found these giant tracks that they didn't match anything that anybody knew. So it pointed to Lake Telly, which is a place near where they were seeing it. But I didn't know until after I dowsed. I don't study the maps until I'm finished dowsing. So I dowsed, and I found an area where there's a cluster of them. And I said, I could tell these cryptozoologists that want to go out there and find them, but they may not believe me because it's dangerous, because the Belgium, it used to be the Belgium Congo. The Belgians, Prince Leopold was not very nice to the people, kind of enslaved them a lot. So during the period, so they're very anti-European, anti-American kind of thing. They have that sentiment there anyway. So some of these tribes won't help because of that, if you're a white man. Now, so I dowsed, and I got that. I said, geez, it's incredible, because that's where they said it was. They were seeing the most of them. So isn't that interesting? So I scanned the map to see if there was any more, and I freaked. So she's down here, which looked like about 300 miles away or something, or 300 miles away. So there's a totally different dinosaur. I mean, this is what I got psychically. And I can't believe that. And so, I always need proof. I'm a scientist, but not proof. I don't need to kill things. So I asked my mentor to come and douse. And he did. He got the same place that I did. And he did the same thing. He said, there's another dinosaur here, another species. I don't know what it is, but it's here. And guess what? Now back then, 1981, 82, 83, when I was doing this here, they didn't know. Now they've seen this dinosaur-like being, this creature. So, it doesn't mean, okay, there's a proof, because Nobody's accepting that, but I am, because I know what I'm doing. It's not going to point there. It's not going to happen. I don't get that impression unless there's something there to impress me. So that's how it works. So, but with science, oh no, I've been there, done that, and they can, good luck to them. So, but this is this fascinated me because, again, all this is coming about. Now, you can use this. I use a lot of it to dowse to help people with health issues. Because it's easy for me to scan a body. I can do it with my hand, a person's body, or use the pendulum. Pendulum's more accurate because even the slightest detail in a person's body that's out of balance, the pendulum will point to it. So I would find out, it's pointing to the liver area. Is this liver stones? Is it gallstones? Is it congested liver? Is it cancer? What is it? Let's find out. So I break it down that way. Wherever it points, if it points to a shoulder, I say, is it a tendon issue? Is it the muscle? Is it arthritis in the joints? What is it? I break it down to know the people they need to know this. And most of the people who come to me have been to doctors, and doctors couldn't help them. And here's an example. A friend of mine started dating someone, and she had a problem with her hip that was hurting. And she thought it was arthritis, and she didn't know. My friend said, hey, I got a friend that can really help you. So he asked me, what do you do? I said, I need a picture of her. So he brought a picture, and I did the dowsing. But I ask, and I use an anatomical chart. So I can break it down anywhere from that photograph. And so I said, what's the most critical imbalance in her body right now? Pointed to her head. I said, what's going on in her head? Brain tumor behind the left eye. So I dealt with the arthritis thing, and I already knew that she was not into alternative medicine. I had dissolved a brain tumor in a woman. Incidentally, they just arrived today. They've become close friends now, her and her husband, because I could dissolve that tumor. It took 5.5 months, and they're always bringing me gifts. They brought a ton of gifts. Here's this one. I was walking around, I had to put them away just now, because they still are grateful for what I did. Because she went back to the doctor, and they did a brain scan, and they couldn't find anything, no tumor, and the doctor said to her, well, let's operate anyway to make sure. Whoa! Talk about an irresponsible doctor. So, at any rate, he alerted her so she could do whatever she wanted with treatment. And of course, she admitted to him that she had pain and pressure in that left eye. And so as soon as she went to the doctor, they confirmed. So this is part what one can do with dowsing. France, back in the 70s and 80s, France had just over 400 licensed medical dowsers in France. So if they can't find something to help this person, then they refer you to a medical dowser. Isn't that interesting? Wow. So I don't call myself a medical dowser. I mean, I don't do anything medical. Why would I? I'm not a doctor. So I just get psychic impressions. I don't see any law that says it's against the law to have a psychic impression. And I have a tool just to help me out, that's all. So let me just show you a few things here. I'm standing. So you can do almost anything once you can work rods. I can pick up clothes hangers and just straighten out the ends and use those. I can pick up a willow branch and start using it. I can use almost anything once you have the ability. again, I had a hard time believing all this to begin with, and here I am, doing all this. Okay, here's a trick. It's not a trick, but it's really important. My mentor taught me. I said, what about this? What about that? He says, well, ask the pendulum. Ask the pendulum. Okay. Finally, I started to think, after a few months working with him, why would I want to ask a pendulum? Why not ask God? I mean, I pray every day for world peace. I have for, 40, 50 years or something. I don't go to church or anything like that, but I pray every day, and I have a prayer list. It's a long one that I go down to help people. And I pray for the forest people and the star people that are working in the white light of Christ. So, but don't want to lose my train of thought here.
Asking God
Pardon?
versus your pendulum.
Louder.
Asking God versus your pendulum. That's
You were
where
going to
we
tell
were.
us a trick.
Oh, right. Thank you. I'm jumping around here. So you ask God. That's the important thing. And I found it become more accurate. So I would pray. I'd say an Our Father, and then I'd say, may the white light of Christ surround me and protect me now from all negativity. So no negative being can sneak in, and if I'm trying to help someone, screw me up. Okay, because they can do that. So I do that, and then every time I say something, I say it like this. I say it to myself, but I'm going to be saying it out loud here, so you'll know. Dear God, please point to the closest Sasquatch from where I'm standing. Hi guys. You like that, huh? Isn't that cool? Okay. Point to the person who's got the most money here. No, I won't. No. You can find almost anything once you do that. Once I get in the woods, I carry the pendulum, but I was on a wilderness island for 5 months in 1981. The Ojibwe Indians dropped me off at one end of the island, but I had a map of the island, but I wanted to go to a certain place way on the other side to investigate. So I got out the map, and I had a compass, and it said 123 degrees southeast. So that's all I needed. Put that away. I don't have to keep stopping. I just walk with this. Walking this way, 120. Where's 123 degrees southeast? Oh, okay. I was getting off course. And then whatever came out exactly to the bay where I wanted to go. I got lost twice in the wilderness. I don't freak or care. Doesn't bother me. One time was the Mount Hood Wilderness area, and I was new at this, and I couldn't find my way back to camp. And I was on this mountain, exploring this mountain, and I said, geez, it's going to be dark in 30 minutes, and it gets down to 35 at night. So you better find it. So I said, it must be this way, because that's why Ralph would say, use your pendulum. That's what he would say. So I said, okay. He said, but it should be well, wait a minute. Are you going to believe the pendulum, or are you going to keep being lost? So I said, I visualized my camp and my food hanging up there in a red bag, about 10, 12 feet up. And so I said, where is my campsite? As I visualized it, and it went this way. I go, what? That doesn't look like that way. I walked for 2 minutes, and there it was. So there's ways. The thing is, if there's a cliff in front of you, it'll go as the crow flies. So you can always skirt around and start all over again on the other side, kind of thing. But let me stay on track here. So I have a special pendulum that I had made. It was laser made. The top of it was. And you want to get a pendulum. If you get one that's a crystal like this, the crystal has all the colors in the rainbow kind of thing. And each color has a vibrational frequency. Each person has. So this helps to some degree. Now, when I was teaching it, I do tell people, ask God. And protect yourself and ask God, because it's that important, especially if you're trying to find someone or something wrong with someone. It's very, very important. So there's a neutral, there's a no, and a yes. Now everybody's pendulum, everybody somehow, you never force it. I talked with a dowser that teaches, and you got to force the person. He says, you're wrong, fella. I said, everyone's unique, and if clockwise happens to be their no and counterclockwise yes, then that's their vibration. You can't tell them to force because they're going to be inaccurate. So I learned all these additional things that were real helpful that I passed on to my students. But I could be in an airplane or a helicopter and use rods or pendulums. Rods probably would work a little better. Never let anyone else use your pendulum or touch it. After you must clear this first and then make your pendulum out of it and carry it with you. And when you're holding it like this, it's your energy. It's your energy. So you're passing it around, it's getting out of tune somewhat. So don't let people touch it. Yeah, one time it was in the winter time. I went to this lake. Actually, it wasn't winter; it was spring. In April, I wanted to go fishing in this very small lake that I had camped by and everything before. But when I got up there, there was still some snow. This is at 6,000 feet. So I've done a lot of snowshoeing and all that, but it was enough. I didn't need all that, and I took my stuff with me and hiked down in, and it got more snow, worse. I said, well, it's not ready. It was warm and everything was fine way below, but I miscalculated. So I said, well, I'll just cut through here. It's easier, because I've been there I don't know how many times. But the snow covered the trail, so it was just at an angle, so you couldn't see anything level or anything like that. And so I kept, again, misdirecting. And I said, well, I'll use my pendulum. So I took it out and asked and kept going and going. And pretty soon I hit a cliff. And I said, I can climb that. And I did. I climbed all the way to the top. And when I got to the top, I just had to pull myself up. And when I did, I reached up to grab that there. And a voice in my head said, no, don't. And so I didn't put any weight on it. And when I just touched it, it flipped back and went down about 80 feet. So I would have gone backwards and I wouldn't be here. So anyway, I shifted to the other side and climbed over, and then I just stepped out of the woods and there was my car. I kept visualizing my car at the trailhead. Car. So that's what you do. If you want Sasquatch, you visualize and hold on to them. But always with the idea of giving of yourself, not taking or exploiting them. That's really, really important. Shamans use different objects. In Africa, they use a lot of bones and things and toss them, and some other cultures do as well. It doesn't look like anything to us, but they can read that. It's similar. Even tarot readings are almost like a dowsing kind of a thing. It's a very similar thing. So they've been using that forever. In Egypt, the high priest would douse to see when people should plant, if they ever missed famine. But they didn't. So they had a method and to say, when there's going to be rain, when this and that and so forth, and when's the best time to plant. So they did that in using purely based on dowsing. That's the ankh that they use and so forth. Let me see here. Yeah, if you locate a portal, stay away from it. You haven't been invited in, so don't go. Don't experiment because you could get stuck between dimensions, and that has happened before. So when you find a portal, you'll know there's Sasquatch in the area. That's all that's necessary. They'll come if they're a mile or 10 miles away, depending. For me, they do. But for the average person, who are they? I wonder what they want. So they may just peek in on you or something.
Are you referring to locating a portal with your dowsing technique or just bumping into one? And if that's the case, how would you recognize it?
Well, you ask. You ask whatever you garbage in, garbage out. This is a computer. So you ask the question, the pendulum gives you the answer, and you keep breaking it down from there. Here's an example. I was only dowsing for 2 years at the time, and I had a new girlfriend. And this was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 1981. And one day, it was on a Sunday, I said, well, let's go visit my friend. I said, when I was in graduate school, she was one of the roommates, and then I had 2 other male roommates that were going to the university there. And I said, let's just stop over and say hello. We're good friends. So I stopped in there, and we all sat around and started talking. And all of a sudden, my lady friend started wheezing. You could hear it in her chest and everything, and gasping for air and everything. You all right? What's going on? I think I'm okay. And well, there's a big dog, collie dog, laying right there sleeping. And I said, well, wait a minute, are you allergic to the dog here? She says, no. She says, my folks have 2 dogs, and I've never been allergic to it. I mean, of course, there's little short-haired dogs, and I don't know. And I said, well, wait a minute, I'll find out for you, So I was going to be the hero. I took out my pendulum and says, is the dog causing her to have an allergic asthmatic attack? No. I went over and over it. No, no, no. So I thought about it and put the pendulum away, and I said, well, I got no, and she's still wheezing. And my other friend said, well, look, I'll let the dog outside, bring him outside. And she said, oh, no, don't bother, he's sleeping, leave him alone. Then I thought of something. Took out the pendulum again. I says, is the dog's dander causing? Yes, big, just almost jumped out of my hand. So again, garbage in, garbage out. You have to be specific, and you can break it down, from there.
Quick question, sir. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Are you familiar with David Paulides' missing?
Louder, please.
David Paulides missing 411. Are you familiar with him?
Know all about it.
What do you feel is happening? Are these people possibly walking into portals, or what's happening out there in your opinion?
I'll answer that at the very end.
Okay, thank you.
I'll answer that. It's a kind of a different thing, but it's an important question, and I do have the answer. Now, when I was working in a holistic healing clinic in Tucson, this businessman came to me who was suicidal. He was a prominent businessman. For 6 years, he had these little miniature volcanoes coming up, these lesions all over his shoulders and down, and mostly in his hands. And he had to shake hands with people, and he couldn't because they're oozing all the time. He went to, believe it or not, he told me 32 doctors. That's how bad he wanted to get rid of this. And he says, what can you do? And I said, let me evaluate you. So I took out the pendulum, and he kind of really squirmed a little bit, what's this about? Kind of crude maybe, but it's not, of course. So I broke it down, and I said, you're allergic to mercury, and this is the result of it. What? He said, where would I get mercury? I said, what about your teeth? He goes, well, yeah, I have mercury in my teeth. I said, you're allergic to mercury. And I said, also, I get with the pendulum that you've got chemicals mixed in with it. So I don't know where that's from. I mean, he nicely dressed and everything, and he lives in Tucson. And he said, well, he says, I'm from Iowa. And he said, I was raised on a farm And he said, I used to spray, and when I reached in to adjust it, it would fall here, and I had a rubber glove up to my elbow, but it would drip in and get caught inside. This stuff's really poisonous, horribly poisonous. So it absorbed into his skin, into his lymphatic system. And so I told him what to do. You have to detoxify. I said, he said, don't you have something you can put on? I said, no. I said, if you want to put a little bit of aloe vera on it or something, it's fine, but it's not going to really do anything. I said, because it'll keep coming back until you get rid of that. So I told him about the program. He said to me, well, I have to go next week to Texas. He said, how am I going to do this? I said, you bring a cooler. You put everything in the cooler because it's so hot, and you take this stuff 3 times a day, like it's going to be your life. And I said, guess what? These are precancerous. He said, well, that's what the doctor said. And I said, you need to get rid of it, so do it. And I said, you probably won't see any results for 4 or 5 weeks. And he said, well, okay. He called me once a week and said, nothing's happening. My God, I don't understand. I said, well, let's see, how many weeks? Well, it's been 2 weeks. I said, well, good that it didn't come out yet. You're right on target, you know. It's going to take time. It went in layers, and it's coming out in layers. So 3.5 weeks went by. He said, it's going away. I can't believe it the first time. And he got completely cleared up. It took a total of 3 months to slowly, you know, I mean, they were just lesions. All the little volcanoes closed up, no more oozing, but the redness and everything started falling down. So he was happy. I mean, there's a real happy guy. I think I charged him $75 at the time or something. It changed his life and saved his life. So 8 or 9 months went by, and he calls me up, and he's freaking. He says, it's starting to come back. I can't believe it. And I said, well, did you take all your mercury out? Like I said, yeah. He says, I cut it all out. He said, it's not the teeth. I don't know. I don't understand. I said, well, just cool it for a minute. Let me. So I got out the pendulum and asked, and I said, it's your teeth. He said, no, it isn't. He said, I told you I took everything out, and before, you know. And I said, you've got a gold tooth up on your left-hand side? He said, yeah, but you can't see it. Oh, you're dowsing it. Okay. And I said, there's mercury underneath, and you need to have that taken out and then that mercury out. I said, oh, incidentally, he did come back to me a week later after the first time I worked with him. He said, I talked to my mother, who has retired down there, and he said, she said every time as a kid he fell off the bicycle and scraped his knee, she'd put mercurochrome on it, and he'd break out all over. And she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, oh, he's allergic to mercury. So he apologized to me, and all that's no need. Just take the stuff and get well. So anyway, so he's freaking, and he said, okay, you said that, I believe you. So he goes to the dentist, and he said, I'd like you to take that off. He said, what for? He said, there's nothing wrong with your teeth. He said, get the mercury from underneath there. Who says there's mercury underneath? He said, well, he didn't want to say. Well, I kept thinking there might be. And so he said, yeah, he didn't, want to discuss the woo-woo aspects of it. So the dentist said, well, there's one way to prove that. Let's be scientific about it. Let's take x-rays of the tooth and we'll know. So he took x-rays of it. He come back and showed him. He says, no mercury. See that? So he calls me up again, freaking. He said, well, what is it? I said, just a minute. Get out my pendulum again. I said, there's mercury underneath there. I don't give a damn what that dentist says. He says, you've helped me so much, and you've helped my mom. And he says, you've been so accurate. He says, I'm going to go with you instead of science. The doctor said, okay. He says, it's $425 to do all this. It's your money, fella. And this was 95. And so money was worth more than too. And that was quite a bit. When he took it off, loaded with mercury. So, does that tell you something? That tells me something as a social scientist, trying to be as scientific as I can. But a lot of this stuff, again, this is quantum physics, really. And you have to go outside the box kind of thing, because the science has not incorporated that in the empirical model. So this is the big argument I have with scientists, because I'm a living proof, but it's just hearsay. So I could be full of baloney, kind of thing, you know. But you go tell these people that I helped how full of baloney I am, and you might get your face slapped or something for insulting them and saying, "Blah, blah, blah, blah," you know. But I'm not being silly, but you know, it's the pendulum's powerful. It changed my life, and one of the things I do with herbs and vitamins. You can ask, or even I have charts. You can buy these, and I have special charts that has all the vitamins and herbs and stuff. Since I study herbs from all over the world, there's many that aren't on there that I ask first, because there's intellectually I already know these 3 or 4 herbs would do it, but I want to know which 1 or 2 is the very best. You know, that's how I work it. So you can find out. I learned early on in 1987, I had a bronchitis, and it wouldn't go away. And so I said, well, I'll just take these herbs. If you take care of that, I don't need to go to the doctor. So I took the herbs for bronchitis, and nothing happened. So I said, well, I got to take more. So I added, I got this one to work too. I didn't mean I overdid it, but I blended them, and nothing was working. I couldn't believe it. So after about a week of this, and no change whatsoever, I said, how come you didn't dowse? This is 1987. So I lined up all my herbs and some that were only borderline for bronchitis. It pointed to only one herb, and that herb I never used because I thought it wasn't powerful enough. I didn't know enough, and it cleared me up within 3 days. So the pendulum, again, as long as you have an open heart, but you must stay neutral. And I use that term because it's difficult to do it if you say, I'll give you an example. If you say, oh, I bet I probably need a lot of vitamin C. You go, oh yeah, pointing to vitamin C. Well, sure, you just said it, you were intellectual. This is not an intellectual thing. This is putting your mind in neutral, but it'll leak from the intellect until you learn. I can be having the worst day of the year, and if someone said, my God, I'm so sick, I said, okay, let's sit down here. I can just change, focus in, and tune right in, and go to neutral, so all the information is good. So I do psychic cartography readings. People want to move, but they, and I ask them, what do you want out of life? What are you trying to do? First, they should think, in today's world, a safe zone to live, and where that person is tuned to people energy and earth energy. And this is part of what I say when I ask. And so I ask, again, I pray, and I say, dear God, please show me 3 places where this person would want to have safety or this and that, whatever they're asking. And in the end, I say that they're attuned to people energy and earth energy. And it goes to 3 different places, and they can pick. Well, I've done, I can't recall how many. It could be 75 or 100 or more over the years. But when I did one for someone, it was actually in 1987 as well. I got Anchorage, Alaska, Phoenix, Arizona, and a place in southern Colorado. I still remember this. And she looked at me and said, Alaska? Why is that there? She says, I would never go there. She says, I hate cold weather. And she says, I've been living in southern Oregon here, which is hot and everything. She says, I really thought that Phoenix would be the best place. So you got Phoenix here. And I said, I generally don't interfere. And I said, and leave it up to the person. But I'm going to tell you something. Anchorage is 10 times better than Phoenix. It'll change your life. And she said, I don't want to talk about it. I hate cold weather, so let's just forget it. And I said, but I need to tell you, you're paying me to do this. And I explained the importance and so on to reconsider and so on. But whatever you do, that's between her and God, which is fine. But I wanted to make sure she understood what I was getting during this reading. So 9 months went by and I got a phone call. I said, hello? She said, hi. She said, this is Susan. I said, yeah. I said, I know a lot of Susans. Which one? She said, well, you did a reading for me, she says, last year. I said, geez, I don't know how many I've done so far. I said, and at the psychic fair, so I wouldn't know who you are. She says, no. She says, this is Susan so-and-so. You told me to go to you did a reading for me on a psychic cartography reading. I said, oh, right. She says, I'm calling from Alaska. She says, my whole life has changed. You're absolutely correct. She says, I sold my sewing machine, my car that needed fixing that I couldn't drive. I was walking to work part-time in Oregon when she was there. And she said, I sold the car as is and everything, and I arrived with 2 suitcases. That's it. And she says, the first month I had one room. And she said, but I found a job in 2 days. And she said, then, she says, I got a promotion, and then I got a 3-room place. She says, but now, she says, I have a 3-bedroom house and a new car. And she says, I just got engaged. And she said, I called to thank you. You were absolutely correct. Wow. And she said, my 2 children, one 20, one 22, she says, has moved up there with her, and they love it. And their lives have just been as smooth as can be. She started out as a waitress, then head of the waitress thing and all that, and then a manager of the because with it being mismanaged, and the owner was upset, and she would come back and say, well, look, if it was done this way and this way, that would have worked. And he realized she knew more about it than the woman that was running it. So anyway, she excelled on that. This happened another time with one of my closest friends. He was married, living in Utah. His wife is from Atlanta, Georgia, and he wanted me to do this reading, cartography reading. So I did. I found 3 places, Albuquerque and 2 places in southern Colorado. And so he called me back, and he called me up after he talked with his wife, because I did it with a picture of, some people are there in person, or you send a picture, it was him and his wife together. Their energies were together. And he said, well, he said, we got a problem. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, my wife hates cold weather, and that's at 6,000 feet, Albuquerque is, and gee, she's from Atlanta, Georgia, and she wants to get out of Utah, but she's not going to move to Albuquerque. So I tell you right now, she's upset and thought, well, it must be something better, you know. And so she's talking about wanting to move back to Atlanta, and I don't, he said. So I said, gee, I don't know. Basically, it's his problem, and I did my work as best I could and everything. So 3 weeks went by, and he called me up again. He said, we just got back from New Mexico. He said, we took a 5-day vacation because just saying New Mexico reminded my wife that she always wanted to go to Santa Fe. She's an artist and everything, and oh boy, she can't wait to go to Santa Fe. Oh, it's spiritual, and she's been wanting for years. And I said, okay, let's go. So they flew down to Albuquerque, rented a car, and went to there. It was so commercialized, and the energy was so bad that they were disappointed, really disappointed. So what are they going to do? Well, let's go back to Albuquerque and just do something else. He said, he called me, said, we have a house now in Albuquerque. He said, my wife loves it. And he says, I like it too, you know. So again, using the pendulum is important if you're dedicated to it. Just playing with it is not, but you know, of course I was very, very dedicated and followed it to the T. Eric,
Yes, sir.
wake up.
Oh, wait,
Okay, I'm going to answer the question. It's 5 minutes to 12. And your question about David Paulides' work. Well, he's absolutely correct of what's going on. There are people being missing all over the United States, but really all over the world. And Sasquatch is being blamed for it in this country. Well, some tribes were cannibalistic, but that was way back when some of the Indians were killing them and trying to kill more of them, and so they would kill the Indians. Well, we might as well eat, kind of fast food a little bit. So here we is, we might as well take advantage of it. So some were cannibals. So, but so was the people when I crossed the South Pacific in a French freighter for almost 2 months, crossing it from Sydney to Panama. I visited and stayed with all these people. Their grandfathers were cannibals, so this is 1968. So, are they cannibals? Of course not, because they realize it's not a thriving business kind of thing, and it's unethical. So, now, so again, they don't do it. But what's going on is that right now, it's the old adage, the good against the bad. And there's evil ETs and there's good ETs. The good ETs don't go and kill off the bad ETs because that's karma. They can do it different ways by not accumulating karma. So these bad guys have captured, and the ancient ones were discussing this with me about how they do this, and because they said they lost one of their close friends that was a Sasquatch that was taken by one of these evil ETs, a group of them, on a ship, and then they never come back. They use them for experimental purposes. Sometimes they put electrodes in their brain with things to control them, so they're so powerful, one arm they could flip your car. So they can do work for them. So these are the evil ones. But Sasquatch said that they've been here 200 million years. That's when they were bioengineered, genetically engineered, but they use the word bioengineered. So they also, I asked them, they said they were seated here then, that we were seated much later. So anyway, these beings are so evolved, and we're just ants almost to them. So they're so evolved that they can manipulate the DNA in any way that they want, and add this from that and this hodgepodge and create centaurs and cyclopses and those with the eagle heads and the wolf heads. In Egypt, Ra was doing this. In Greece, the Greek gods, they weren't gods, they were ETs. But they could do so much. India, the same way. The Vedic literature is loaded with that. And even the Vedic literature says all this started, I swear to God, 200 million years ago, that the first ETs and they weren't the first, but first to really colonize big time. Because they said that a billion years ago, just over a billion years ago, if you can fathom that, that the reptilians were the first here and working. Now, so these ETs, evil ETs, grabbed from all different beings and created this being that's so powerful it can kill a Sasquatch, it can kill the wolf, the dog-faced people, they can kill the ancient ones. They're that powerful. And why did they do it? And they made it so it's hairy and big. So at a distance, it looks like a Sasquatch. But they have the same powers. They can dematerialize and all that stuff. Because they walk up to people, there's people right behind you, turn on to say something, and they're gone. How could that be? There's no hole. They cloak them and might have killed them immediately. I don't know, but they kill and eat people. And that's what's going on. And it's deliberate. This may sound science fiction, but I make no apologies. It sounds like, again, that the Sasquatch are doing it, but this is deliberate so people will fear the Sasquatch. So they won't do what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. But I got news for the bad ETs. I have a salute for them. So we're going to win. They're slowly losing, but this love energy, love and God are synonymous. And when you hold on to that love energy and you pray in love energy, you meditate with love energy, it goes out into the universe and starts affecting people. So it's super important. So I don't like this. I don't know how to resolve this. These beings, or maybe the ETs, in time, somewhere along the line, maybe during Earth changes, if there's some real catastrophes, that they can laser these guys and zap them out of here or something. I don't know, but that seems to be, that is the answer. Well, I want to thank everyone, and God bless you all, and enjoy yourselves here at the conference.